What I have here, folks, is the Katoma Combat 2-person tent. And in this episode, we will answer the question, is this tent waterproof and how does it handle condensation, ventilation, and moisture control? This is a test night episode. Let's go ahead and set this up and get to it. This is a fairly large military tent, 2-person. It features 3 poles, 2 doors. Each one of these poles are the exact same size, same length. Now, because it's so breezy, I will go ahead and stake the tent body out before I put the poles in. With this episode, folks, there's a lot of rain coming in. First, there's a cold front that's coming in tonight, and there will be rain by morning tomorrow. Tomorrow night, Hurricane Zeta will be here, and a lot of rain will be coming in the following day. So this is a multi-day rain event. At the same time that I'm testing out this tent, I am also testing out the Katoma Stealth 1-person tent. Over the next couple of days, I will be staying in both tents, testing them out, and these are just my initial tests. Now, talking about the tent stakes here for a second, Katoma uses some of the weirdest tent stakes. It's not much of a stake, it's more of a screw, really. As you push it into the ground, you will feel it turn, just like a screw does. It's very different, very unusual. Now with this tent, folks, there are a ton of tie-off points, which you have to tie off to the poles. It takes a while. There are so many of these, in fact. I will spare you this. And I will bring you all back in just a minute. All right, everyone, the tent has been set up, and there is an issue that I want to point out. So come over here and take a look at this seam in this junction right here. Now look at it from the other side. You can see that light coming through. That is a separation of the seams there. That is now a severe weak point for this tent. It could continue to rip and spread apart. So that is something that we do have to keep an eye on. Outside of that issue, I haven't seen anything else that's alarming. The setup process did take some time, and that's because there are so many tie-off points. I mean, folks, it's unreal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, I believe. At least 16 tie-off points. That's a little bit much, it really is. The Combat 2-person tent has a hydrostatic rating of 3,000 for the floor and also for the fly. So in theory, it should be very, very waterproof. But again, folks, we have a separation of the seams there. As soon as I get home, I will contact the company to see if I can't get a return. I want a version that's not torn up. Now, everyone, we await nightfall, rain, and we'll put this tent to the test. How waterproof is it? How does it handle condensation? What about airflow and ventilation? I will answer all of those questions in this episode. Let's do this. So it's the next day, and it is raining. Rain started a few hours ago, and so far it's been moderate to heavy with about an hour of light rain there. Without a doubt, this tent has already faced quite a bit of rain, and I'm excited to look inside to see if there's been any problems. I'm very concerned about this seam right here, especially this hole. Yeah, I don't know. We shall see. If you watched the test night episode with the Stealth 1, then you know already that this tent is in for a lot of rain. There's a cold front coming in first, 1 to 2 inches today, 1 to 2 tonight, and then the Hurricane Zeta is coming in tomorrow, and that's 3 to 5 inches of rain. So without a doubt, this tent is going to see a lot of action. Based upon the last report that I saw, wind is not supposed to be an issue here, but we shall see. The tent has been staked out. It's in storm mode. The poles have been tied off. It is basically ready to rock and roll. It is ready to face the conditions. And As I mentioned before, I am concerned about this tent, but you never know. It may not leak. There may be enough seam tape on there to prevent any sort of leaking. Other issues that I'm concerned about when it comes to the Combat 2 is ventilation and condensation. The fly goes basically down to the ground. There's about 1.5 inch, 2 inch gap between the fly and the ground itself. So condensation could be a serious problem with this tent when it's all sealed up. There are no vents on this tent, and that could be a problem for this shelter. Since this is a prolonged rain event, it's going to last 2 days. My first night is in the Stealth 1 tent. The second night is in the Combat 2. In this episode, I will not talk anymore about the Stealth 1. So if you want to see that episode, check my channel, it's there. This is without a doubt going to be an awesome test of this tent. All right, everyone, it has stopped raining for a minute. Let's take a look at the Combat 2 tent. So first off, the door is huge. The inside of the tent does seem to be dry. Here where there's the issue with the seam, it is covered with seam tape, and that is preventing water from ingressing into the tent. So far, so good. No leaking at all. That, my friends, is pretty positive considering how much rain has fallen so far. All right, everyone. It is time to take test night into the tent. Here's an update on everything that's taken place. Over the course of 2 days, Hurricane Zeta came through and also that cold front. Really, it was the cold front, then the hurricane. We have received roughly 5 inches of rain, and I need to look around this tent. There has been absolutely no leaking in this tent. No leaking at all, folks. Nothing. I tell you what, I'm impressed because it has been a lot of rain. It started raining the following morning. It rained all day, all night, and it rained up until this afternoon, then it cleared up. As it stands right now, it's not raining, but there are some impressive storms on the way. I don't know if we'll get a thunderstorm or not, but we should get some good rain later on tonight. As far as the tent being waterproof, it is certainly that. But what about condensation? What about moisture? With the Stealth one-person tent, wow, was it bad. The airflow was terrible, the condensation was terrible, and in truth, I don't suspect much better for this tent. It features many aspects of the same design. One thing that I can tell you is that this tent is huge. Easily, this is a 2.5 person size tent. I mean, this is going to work for wide people, tall people, short people, couples, and so on. There's plenty of room for one-person dog gear, and so on. If you're very tall, you can always sleep diagonally inside of this. Oh. Okay, well folks, I am going to call it a night. Await the rain, maybe some storms. That'd be pretty awesome. As it stands right now, everyone, it is a little bit humid, but it's dry. I'm going to open up the doors, await the rain, and I'll bring you all back soon. Good night, everybody. All right, everyone, update time. I've been inside of the tent for about an hour and a half, and it just started raining. So the tent's been sealed up for a little bit, and already condensation is forming in here. In fact, it's coming on incredibly fast. The floor is beginning to get wet with condensation, not so much the walls. Well, actually, a little bit of this wall, the material's different than this wall here. This is more of like a polyester fabric that's really breathable, and this one's been treated with something. You can tell that it's like highly waterproof, and already it's beginning to sweat. Folks, It's been about 2 hours. I have not slept any, I've been watching a movie. But the tent's been sealed up, and it is incredibly wet and damp in here. As you all can hear, it's raining nicely. Again, no leaks, but the amount of condensation that's formed in here is unreal. I think back to the Kelty one-man tent and how poor the ventilation and breathability was, and this easily tops it. In fact, I think this is worse. The Stealth 1 tent is just as bad, really. But yeah, there is condensation forming everywhere. As you all can see here, the amount of water that's inside of this tent already after a few hours is insane. It's absolutely insane. Honestly, folks, I've never seen anything quite like it before. When you have the doors open and all this moisture can escape, it's fine. One thing that I know for certain is that I will have to do more testing with these tents. The Combat 2 and also the Stealth 1. On dry nights, will condensation form inside of these tents? This is something I need to know. I mean, as soon as I seal them up, the amount of condensation is just mind-blowing. A little bit on the walls is to be expected, but the amount that's on the ground is incredible. And again, the material here on the side walls is different than the front and the back. I'm pretty sure that's been treated with something to make it waterproof, whereas the front and back are just breathable. I'm dry because I'm on my sleeping pad, but everything on the floor is soaking wet. Keeping my sleeping bag from touching the floor is impossible. It's simply impossible. So now, even it is damp in places. One good thing about this tent is that you can open up the doors a good degree without getting the body wet, and that's a huge plus. So I have zipped those back some. It's raining, but the body's not getting wet, and that's on both sides. So there is some air coming in. Maybe it will dry things off just a little bit. Oh man. Everyone, the night is done. We made it. And there's quite a bit to talk about. To recap what happened last night, I got inside of the tent. Moisture began to build. It started raining. I sealed it up 100%, and the amount of moisture inside of this was just unreal. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that much condensation form, especially on a floor before. Before the night was done, this place was a greenhouse. I mean, there was just water everywhere. That's when the rain stopped. I was able to open up these doors. It got windy. So imagine lots of air just blowing inside of this tent. And it has dried everything out 100%. It went from a terrible experience to a good one. And here we are today. It's very cool, it's very dry, and these are my thoughts in regards to the Combat 2 person tent. The setup process is simple up until you get to the point where you have to tie the fly to the poles. Then this process becomes extremely complicated and very slow. It takes a lot of time to tie those off, and also it is easy to get confused as to which tie off goes to which pole, because there are 3 poles that crisscross with this tent, and it's very easy to tie them off to the wrong place. Once you get done, you'll take a step back and you'll see that something's not right and have to go back and fix it. In the future, I will have an episode of Before You Buy. I'll talk about this in more detail and also show you all how to set this up correctly. Moving on to the topic of waterproofing, this tent is waterproof. It has faced over 5 inches of rain over the course of many days without a single leak. I'm impressed. I really am. This tent has taken a lot of rain, and also it's taken quite a bit of wind. For the last maybe 6 hours, it has been very gusty. I'd say the wind gusts got up to maybe 30 miles an hour, something like that. And this tent has handled those conditions very well. The fly, even though it has a hole in it, has stayed together. And speaking of the hole in the fly, I would say that that's just more of a random event. I don't think this is a common theme with this company or with this brand. I mean, looking at the quality elsewhere with this tent, it's perfect. And also, the same could be said with the Stealth 1. There's no issues. Moving on, folks, with this tent being a double wall shelter, it is very warm, especially if you have to seal this up. In the summertime, in a rainy environment, you have to seal this up. You are going to be very hot. You are going to be miserable. And that's because this tent offers very little in forms of ventilation and moisture control. You can leave the doors partially unzipped and that will help, but don't fool yourself. This is going to be a very warm tent when it's sealed up. So double walls, great for fall, winter conditions, not so great for summer conditions. Next, we have to talk about space. Look at this. This place is a palace. You can easily sit up inside of this. So folks, with this episode, I've said a lot, I've done a lot, this tent has experienced a lot, and I will go ahead and wrap it up for now. I still have a lot of testing to do. There's no doubt about it. I've been testing this tent out in the worst of conditions, and I need to continue testing this tent out in a variety of conditions to see how well it performs. My agenda-free review of this tent will be coming up into the future, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. Make sure to sound off in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about this tent? What do you all think about the design? It's a big tent, that's for sure. A big double-walled tent. It has a lot going for it. At the same time, it does have some major cons, especially when it comes to ventilation and condensation. I have my thoughts as to why these materials perform so poorly, and I will talk about this in my review. So everyone, sound off, take care, strength and honor. I will see you all around. Bye.